You know what it is each and every time. It's your boy Young Guru, aka The Glue, aka Hank McCoy, aka N.W.A Brahma. Y'all always know that I'm rocking with Hard Knock each and every time. Let's go.
What is the era of the engineer?
The era of the engineer is really a focus on things that are behind the scenes and not only just behind the scenes as to what an engineer does, but it's like in today's society, everyone is having to do a little bit of engineering, right? There's so much technical stuff going on that people are starting to understand that it takes someone with a little bit of knowledge to know how to work all these things. So I think those things are starting to become more prominent. But it's really about highlighting people that are designing things, number one, not just music and not just musical equipment, but engineering in the general sense of taking something, designing it, having it work for people, and also just highlighting technical things. We're so much in the technical era that now it is literally the era of the engineer.
I was watching something where you were talking about breathing and how breathing fits into the natural recording process. And I felt like there was a lot of wisdom on that. Could you share that?
My whole thing is to not be super deep, but all this stuff is very metaphysical. But it's very natural in the way that we live our lives. So everything is cyclical, you know, where you breathe in is the point of inspiration, you know, and that's exactly what it means. It's like you're breathing in life, you're breathing in air, and then you have to expire. You have to push that air out in order to make space to bring in new air, if you can really understand it that way. So everything in music and everything in life is a circle, it's cyclical, it keeps going around. So there's that constant motion of moving in and out, you know, whether or not you're talking about a speaker, right? A speaker moves in and out, it actually moves air. The air is sacred, the air is the thing that sound travels on. So it's like without any air, we don't have any sound, and without any movement, we don't have any life. You know, that's really the essence of what the concept of N.W.A Brahma, or sound being God, right? And we don't mean just sound in terms of what we can hear from 20,000 to 20 hertz. You know, that's human hearing, but just vibration in general. Movement is the essence of life. Without that movement, there's no physical thing. Like even solid things, there's still vibration that has these things together. So the air and especially movement, which air is the vehicle that sound moves on.
You also talked about tension and release when you're working with an artist.
Yeah, so like, again, when I speak of that movement of moving out and then moving back in, you know, here's the tension when you move in and here's the release, you know? So it's like, those are things that are what makes great art. You know, when you're making a movie, the movie doesn't just go like this. The movie sort of rises like this. You're building a story, then you get to this point where like everything is revealed and then there's a release at the end of the movie. If you look at songs are built the same way, but this arc where it's like, okay, we're at the intro, we're going through verses, we get to the chorus, which is like the height of it, then we go back, dip back down into another verse to sort of explain the chorus even further. You know, music moves like that, and if you keep doing that, it becomes a wave. So you can sort of understand how all of these concepts move together, you know, and that tension and release is what the greatest thing is, because that's what pushes life.
Listening to grunge actually helped you conceptualize the idea of like different things. Can you talk about that?
Everyone always goes to Nirvana, but my favorite band in that genre of all time is Mudhoney, and I'm very, you know, big on that band. But it's just the way that the records are structured, where most of the records start in this very quiet space where you're just starting to build, and it builds all the way up to this huge tension where the guitars are like super loud, and then it breaks back down into like some quiet space, and then builds back up to where the artist is yelling and almost, you know, trying to cut their voice over all of those loud guitars. And I think that is a perfect example of taking people on this ride musically, you know, and that format, or should I say that way of making records, influenced me a lot, more than just the style and the look, you know, of grunge. It was the way that the records were formulated that I sort of took from that and said, okay, we need more of that in our hip hop music.
What makes a good engineer?
Somebody that can solve problems. Engineering is completely about solving problems, and whether or not you're talking musical engineer or simply someone standing on the bank of a river saying, I want to get to the other side, and then they figure out how to build a bridge. That's solving a problem. You know, it may take you 2 months to walk around the whole river, whereas I can cut and build a bridge and do this in an hour. You know, it's all about problem solving. So what makes a great engineer is someone who can analyze the situation and solve the problem. They have enough training with all of the tools that they're working with, be that musical equipment, be that, you know, whatever venue that they're in. It makes a great engineer when you can look at the problem, analyze it, and solve the problem, but also know how to adjust in the middle of the problem.
Can you give us an example of where you did that?
A lot of people take this and say, okay, well, I know how to work equipment, and so I'm going to be a great engineer. And it's like, you can know how to work all the equipment you want to, but if you don't know how to deal with artists, if you don't know how to deal with the attitude of artists, if you don't know how to deal with their insecurities, with their particular life problems, you know, them maybe being nervous for going in the studio, or having a bad night the night before, or being a successful artist who's now trying to survive in an industry where there's a bunch of new artists and maybe nobody's really paying super attention to them. You know, when they first came out, all the attention was on them. So now they're sort of lost as to where they want to go or what they should do in a new world. All of this goes into engineering of where you're directing someone in terms of what should your sound be, what ways should you cut vocals, what things should you not do that are new that'll take away from your legacy. You know, all of those things have to be incorporated when you're dealing with an artist, whether it's the new artist who doesn't really know the recording process, so you're sort of walking them through that, or an older artist who may have old tendencies or old things that just won't work out in today's society. So I think it always helps that you have to be the problem solver and the person that can see that overall view for what the artist wants.
When you work with artists for the first time, is there something particular routine that you do to just kind of like get them into the comfort level, or is it different with every artist?
It's absolutely different with every artist. Artists are like children, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean that in a way that, you know, I have 4 kids and all of my kids completely act different. So the way that I would discipline them or address them is completely different. You have to analyze that person. So the best thing is conversation. I think a lot of people don't have those initial conversations to figure out, well, why are you doing this? Or where do you want to go with this? Or what's the purpose of this? So once you figure out all those things, making music is sort of easier. Not to say making music is easy, but it's easier because now we have sort of a road or a path that we have put ourselves on, and we know when we deviate from that path on purpose or when we're, you know, purposely staying on our path.
When you're in the recording process and maybe you have a difference than the artist, or maybe you're thinking about going a different way, do you find yourself always telling the artist, or does it depend on the relationship? Like, who do you tell? Or
right, I definitely find that I tell the artist all the time, but based off of the relationship is how you tell the artist. If you have a really good relationship with somebody, you can just be completely blunt and say, look, this, and this. It's sort of like a relationship with somebody that you're in love with. You know, it's like I can just be so open and speak to you, where if you're with a coworker, you might not be as blunt, you know, because your relationship with them is not the same, where if you do get into an argument, it's not guaranteed that you're going to make up, you know, that type of thing. So if it's an artist that I really have a great relationship with, I'll just be extremely blunt with them. Other artists, you sort of have to go around the bluntness and figure out a way to explain it to them so that it makes sense. But if you can tell someone why something is beneficial for them, they normally listen. Or if you can tell someone why something is harmful to them, they normally listen. And then it gets a lot easier if you have a certain amount of success, because then the person is more apt to understand that you know what you're talking about. You know, everything in music is opinion, but I'm giving you my opinion based off of all of my experience so that you can have the best product as possible. Not to say that I'm always correct, but I'm going to give you my honest opinion. You then go make your decision based off of what you think is right for you. It's sort of like a doctor or a lawyer. Your lawyer is going to recommend, hey, I think this is the best course of action for you. But at the end of the day, the lawyer works for you. So you get to decide whatever you want to do. A doctor can recommend something to you. You can go get a second opinion, or you can run with what that doctor says. But hopefully you chose your doctor because you trust that this person is the best person to keep you healthy. Same thing with an engineer. You should choose your engineer based off of either previous work or work that you've seen them done, or potential that you know that that person has. If they're a new engineer, for some reason you hired them. So trust the reason why you hired them. The yes men thing, it does nobody good in the studio. So it's never going to be a situation where I'm just going to roll with the record and say, oh yeah, that's cool, let's get out of here. No, I'm going to give you my opinion to make the best record. Again, it's up to you to take my advice or to not take it.
What advice would you give to a young engineer, somebody who wants to be an engineer, someone who looks at your work and is like, I want to do that?
I mean, just to, first of all, to learn as much as they can about all the equipment, and in today's world, that means programs, right? You know, if you're dealing with whatever program you're dealing with, be it Logic, Pro Tools, Ableton, you know, Cubase, whatever you want to deal with, just master it. Learn as much as you can. Read up on as much as you can. Watch as many YouTube videos as you can. Look at different techniques and tricks and things that people are putting online, because there's so much information out there that you could just sit and eat a bowl of cereal and still be learning, you know, and you can do that on an iPad, you can do it on your phone, you can do it anywhere. And don't be scared to, like, I even do this to a certain degree. If there's some sort of thing that I want to do, I'll take 5 minutes and stop what I'm doing in the session and pull up YouTube and watch, or just Google whatever that I'm trying to do to maybe get a different way of doing it from somebody else. So just realize how much information and how much resources out there for you, and don't be afraid to go after it. But you should always be in some sort of study. There's always a new program coming out. There's always a new version of the same program that you did. You may have mastered Pro Tools 2 years ago, but now there's all this other features that they just put in Pro Tools 11 that wasn't in Pro Tools 9. You know, you have to continuously stay up, or some young guy is going to come along and his first version is Pro Tools 11 and he knows it like the back of his hand. So you have to really just stay up on information and consistently seek out that information.